If you're just joining us, welcome. I see more people are still joining the webinar, so we'll give it another minute or so to let people get settled, and then we will formally begin. Okay. Greetings and welcome to everyone who's joining this first workshop on the foundations of open statistical systems. I welcome you wherever you are, and I'd like to introduce my colleague from the UN Statistics Division, Vibeke Nielsen, to also extend her greetings to you. Vibeke?
Good morning and good afternoon and good evening to everyone, and thank you, Eric, for handing over to me. My name is Vibeke Nielsen, and I'm a senior statistician focusing on capacity development, including work under the Data for Now initiative at the UN Statistics Division. And I'm very pleased to welcome you all to this first of two sessions on open data that we are organizing jointly with Open Data Watch. In the context of Data for Now, open data is an important part of the work because all the work that we are doing jointly with you and with other colleagues when it comes to improving the availability of data and statistics for decision making, open data helps in ensuring that the data we produce and the statistics we produce is made available to users in accessible format for their flexible use. And we're therefore pleased to be able to run this set of two webinars with you so that more of you can benefit from this and also consider increasingly using open data principles, taking an open data approach to your work, both at statistical offices, but also more widely among other agencies in the national statistical system or wider data ecosystem in your countries. So I'm looking forward to this first session today that will have many speakers from Open Data Watch, but also from a selected number of countries sharing experiences and hopefully giving you some new insights in the work around open data. We will be recording the session today and also the session next week, and we'll be publishing it online on the Data for Now web pages so that also colleagues who are not able to join us now virtually directly can listen in afterwards. So thank you so much again, and hope you will enjoy the two webinars. And back to you, Eric. You're muted, Eric.
I'm Eric Swanson. I'm the Director of Research at Open Data Watch, and I'll act as the sort of master of ceremony for today's workshop. But as Vibeke said, we'll be joined by other staff from Open Data Watch and by two statisticians from NSOs. The agenda for today's session is on the screen now. So we are going to begin with a review of the fundamental requirements for open data. And ask why so many countries have adopted policies of making data open by default. What does that mean? How is it done? And we will discuss the reasons for open data by default and its limitations. Then we'll get an NSO perspective from Ashiath Shazna from the Maldives Bureau of Statistics. And following her presentation, there will be an opportunity for you to share your experience or to raise questions with our presenters. Please use the Q&A option on your screen to post your questions. And you can post questions at any time, and then we'll bring them up during the question and answer session. Following the first Q&A, we will explore in greater detail three important elements of open data licensing, open formats, and metadata. And then we'll hear from Sarah Nurunda about the experience in Kenya with open data. And again, a second Q&A session where you'll be able to ask questions of all the panelists or to share your own experience from your agencies with managing open data. We really want to use these workshops to share ideas and solve problems, so please do not hesitate to speak up and add to the discussion during the Q&A. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Jameson Henninger. Many of you already know Jameson as the manager of the Open Data Inventory and as a strong advocate for open data in official statistics. Jameson, over to you.
Great, thank you, Eric. And good day, everyone. Before I go into my session, I just want to direct everyone's attention to the fact that we do have a Q&A box. So if you have any questions for me or any of our speakers, you can leave them there. You can also leave them in the chat box if you can't figure out how the Q&A works, but it might be more likely that we miss your questions if you put them there. So just wanted to lay that out before I begin. So good day, everyone. My name is Jameson Henninger. I'm the Open Data Manager at Open Data Watch. And to start off our session today, I'd like to frame our conversation around specifically why open data are particularly important in the area of government statistics, and also why governments and NSOs would benefit from a broader approach than we typically see taken to open data if you want to realize some of the most important benefits. So to do this, we're going to start by discussing one of the commonly used definitions of open data. You may have seen it before. It's called the open definition, and this is created by the Open Knowledge Foundation. Okay, next slide. So what are open data? This is the very basic version of this definition, can be condensed into one sentence. And that one sentence is on this slide. It says open data and content can be freely used, modified, and shared for any purpose. So more clarification on what this means exactly. You can read the long, full definition, but essentially that definition includes these four concepts that you can see on the slide. So free access to data, the data should be made available in machine readable, non-proprietary formats, and published under an open data license. So it's okay if you don't know what all these things mean exactly. My colleagues are going to touch more on these topics in more detail later. But just briefly, this means that open data are data that can be acquired for free, right? Without any unnecessary hurdles to access. The user is allowed to share the data, modify it if they wish. For instance, maybe by converting it to per capita measures or combining with other data sets to make a new product. Right? So these are some of the key core basic criteria of open data that a lot of people tend to be more familiar with. So what you may note about this basic definition, these basic requirements here, is that they all mainly concern how data are published. But I want us to expand our thinking around open data because this is a very narrow way to think about how to tackle open data. And if your ultimate goal is to publish open data, not for open data's sake, but to increase the value, increase the use, increase the impact of your data, then looking at open data from this broader approach is going to be more impactful and helpful for you to meet that goal. So when we focus on this goal and focus on increasing the value impact of your data, you'll see that there's many activities across a data set's life cycle that can be done before and after publication to support these open data principles. And this is really what we want to stress for NSOs, for governments. They're trying to adopt sustainable and successful open data programs. So to illustrate this point, we can look at the data value chain. Producing open data requires a transparent process. And therefore, open data principles really apply across every stage of the data value chain, from data collection, publication, uptake, the impact. And this is how we see the value of data increasing, by moving it past that publication stage to uptake and reuse, and the ultimate impact that reuse would have, either on the economy or building knowledge, fostering trust, better policy making, and so forth, right? And then you'll see at every step of the way, there's this yellow line, which represents feedback loops, right? And since user demand, user needs are such a big aspect of open data, right? We're publishing data to meet users' needs, all right? And so this constant feedback loop back and forth between data producers and data users is really vital to ensuring that at every step of the way, that what we're producing is meeting the needs of our users. So on this graphic, each of the small boxes, which I'm not going to read each one of, represents a type of activity that can be done at each stage to promote open data. So in the beginning of the data value chain, it requires open data, a transparent, inclusive data collection process, which might involve more consultations, consulting future users, identifying these demands and needs. As you progress through the processing and analysis stages of publication, you'll see that your activities turn to more of these traditional principles of openness, like the ones that I mentioned already, like commitment, and which lead to commitments to interoperability, accessibility of data, right? And all those openness components that I mentioned around publication. And then we move to these final stages of the data value chain, where activities involve, publishing the data, yes, under an open license, but also doing things to promote the reuse and redistribution of your data, which is going to help maximize its economic, societal value, and greater impact. Right. So just to end this slide, the main point is that embracing open data, but only at the publication stage, it's not going to help you realize the full potential of what open data can offer. Only embracing openness throughout the entire data value chain is really going to help you meet these end goals of increasing use and impact. And although we know that some of these activities probably to most of you seem outside that norm of what NSOs traditionally do, outside your normal responsibilities. And this is really a case for why open data is best implemented across the entire national statistical system, so that these activities are collaborative and don't fall just on one agency or another. Okay, next slide. So this brings me to March 2022, when the UN Statistical Commission also recognized the usefulness of this broader approach to open data in statistics. Specifically when they endorsed a report by the Open Data Working Group, which established the principle of open by default. So the open by default principle serves as this foundation of a set of different activities and policies for NSOs, other government agencies who want to make data publicly available and in accordance with open data guidelines. So you might have never heard of the term open by default before, but it's exactly what it sounds like. So in many places around the world, especially a few decades ago, how data sharing between governments and its citizens generally worked was a user or citizen would request data, and that government would provide that data within some kind of designated time period. If you're familiar with right to information laws, this is exactly how those work, right? So while right to information laws are great tools for transparency, the open by default approach is very different. So instead, it recognizes that all government data is produced with public resources, and that data are valuable and should be expected to be available to the public by default because of this intrinsic value, right? And so available to the public by default, as in you don't have to specifically request that data to get it. If the data produces the data, the government produces the data, they know that data has value, is then made available publicly. So the next couple slides, I'll go through some of the activities that are generally part of an open by default policy. But one big caveat that I want to make that is sometimes misunderstood is that open by default policies very much value privacy and confidentiality as key components that should never be compromised for the sake of openness. So as we go through some of these activities, I just want you to keep that point in mind because it's really fundamental to what open by default is. Next slide. Okay, so all the activities that I'm going to be talking about today, they're all in this report that I mentioned by the Open Data Working Group that was released in 2022, but we'll share that with you all as well. So this first activity here is about establishing cross-governmental support for your open by default policies. And it's really a step that's often ignored. But having a common understanding across government agencies about what an open by default policy will look like, how it will impact particular agencies, giving them space to voice, address concerns, and really take part in establishing this policy is going to create support and buy-in for it. So that's really first step. A second step, and some of these don't necessarily need to be in the same order, but we try to list the more crucial ones in the beginning first. But adopting a common open data license is really kind of part of that establishing cross-governmental support. And it's a really big one because what we see in a lot of countries, it's very, very common, is that we see different data licenses across different agencies, right? So mix and match of licenses. And often this does lead to a lot of confusion for users and can dissuade them from using your data altogether. Okay, third, I mentioned that there's, a lot of privacy and confidentiality concerns that come into play when publishing data. And in some cases, like national security concerns, like privacy, confidentiality risks, right? There might be legitimate reasons why you cannot make a data set publicly available. And so showing what we call a do not publish list or a negative list of data sets that you cannot release and stating the reasons why is just another transparency measure that you can undertake to build trust with users. Okay, and fourth, even though if you adopt an open by default approach that you should be getting many less data requests, you still might have a few. And so having an established process or a transparent process to take those requests is still very key. Okay, next slide. Okay, a few more activities here. And so we're not going to be discussing microdata much in this session. Simply because microdata is typically not held to the same openness standards as many other types of data because of the increased disclosure risk, but having established clear procedures for microdata file access and properly anonymizing microdata to the extent that it can be made available as public use files is the key goal here. Okay. Publishing a publication timetable so users know when data is going to be made available. Also key, and generally most countries do this already as part of their IMF special data dissemination standards. And then the seventh activity here is actually what we're doing today, right? It's building your staff's capacity to produce open data. Many times when we held these workshops, the only people in the room tend to be people in the IT department. And hopefully my point has been made that open data is not an IT issue. It's not just a data publication issue. It's best if all staff have some kind of idea about what open data concepts are, or at least the open data goals at your organization, so they can work towards meeting them as well. Okay, and the last activity here, open by default policies also prioritize activities with users to help show them how to understand your data, how to use it, maybe some common insights they might find, because this is your ultimate goal, right? You want to increase the use and impact of your data. These types of activities, like I said before, are generally seen outside the scope of NSOs. And these activities generally NSOs do not have a lot of experience with, but some of our speakers today will share some of their experiences engaging with users, and hopefully some of you will also share your experiences of what you've done as well. Okay, so with that final activity, we've gone through the full data value chain from production, collection to impact. Okay, and before I pass the workshop over to my colleagues so we can discuss more of these open data concepts, I do want to leave you with one final point, and that is it's important to think about data openness on a spectrum, right? The question is not, is my data open or closed, but rather, how much can I open this data set without jeopardizing our commitments to confidentiality, privacy, and national security? Most data sets can be open to some extent. So on this slide, you'll see the relationship between data openness and disclosure risk. The types of data sets on the left, generally, if they can be released, are under more restrictive conditions, versus the data sets on the right are types of data that are macro level data, aggregate data, right? They're anonymized, right? The disclosure risk is very low. And that's generally the type of data that we're going to be discussing about opening in this workshop, and will be, able to meet most of the criteria, if not all, of openness that we'll be discussing today. So we see many governments use these disclosure risks as excuses not to publish data at all. But we really stress that should not be the answer. Through the open by default policies, recognize that there are certain types of data that you're not going to be able to release. This should be a short list of data sets. And you should always be asking yourself this question: can I make this data set more open without jeopardizing, again, those commitments, the confidentiality, privacy, and national security? So for that, thank you for your time. I hope this was useful, and I'll pass it back to you, Eric.
Thank you, Jameson. So I want to remind everyone that if you have questions or observations, comments, experiences that you want to share, the Q&A box is available to you. And so feel free to go ahead and post your comments as we move along. I appreciate that for many of you, you want to listen rather than type at the same time. But when you have a chance, please put your ideas and thoughts into the Q&A box. Now I'm very happy to introduce Ashiath Shazna from the Statistics and Development branch of the Maldives Statistics Office. And she is going to give you some of her experience in implementing open data. So, Shazna, please turn on your camera and join us, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Eric. Do you hear me nicely?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
My camera is on, right? You can see me too?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. And Hello, everyone. And as introduced by Eric, I'm Shazna from the Maldives Bureau of Statistics, currently heading the Statistical Development and Outreach Division of the Bureau. And today I'll briefly highlight our efforts to implement the open data in the Maldives as well. Yeah, next slide, please. Well, by following the fundamental principles of official statistics, MBS ensures that open data serves as the public interest and contributes to informed decision making in the country as a whole. And in the Maldives, the statistical system is governed by our statistics law and the National Strategy for the Development of Statistics, the NSDS, is our long-term plan that aims to enhance the statistical system of the country. And our NSDS mainly focuses on 5 key strategic objectives, which covers the coordination and leadership, innovation and modernization, core statistics and the statistical programs, multi-stakeholder partnerships and dissemination and use, as well as the statistical infrastructure and capacity development. Next slide, please. Well, focusing on today's topic on open data concept, the strategic objective 4 mainly highlights the open data actions and proposed outcomes in the document, the NSDS, and it focuses on establishing user producer forums and related mechanisms that facilitates identification and fulfillment of the user's needs as well. And as actions, we have included to have open data principles are being adopted and applied throughout the Maldives statistical system, and NBS to coordinate an initial open data inventory assessment across the Maldives statistical system. At the moment, we are participating in the global one, so we wanted to do it at a national level together with the other agencies, as we have a decentralized statistical system. Next slide, please. Well, and looking at some of the key initiatives we have started to make our data more open. Firstly, we have implemented an enhanced data visualization tool, which is adapted from the UN.stats tool, which is an open source tool customized, which is now customized for our needs. And it is actually a user-friendly data visualization tool available through it is available through our website, and where data can be downloaded in standard formats, and it facilitates APIs, and it also includes the data sharing facilities. And at the moment, we have included our annual statistical yearbook data in it, and we are trying to include all data available at NBS through this portal, but we are in the initial stage actually in developing this tool. Next slide, please. Yeah. Secondly, for data dissemination purposes, we have introduced recently the provision of advanced mapping capabilities through integration with geographic information systems. And we believe that integrating GIS with statistical data will enable decision makers to analyze spatial trends. And as GIS interacts with spatial data, it will allow the users to explore different layers of information, zoom into different locations, specific locations which they really want, and perform customized queries as well. And on this component as well, we are currently we have put on the data with only the census most recent census data available so far, but we are in the developing phase for this as well, to make all our data more open and more user-friendly. Next slide, please. Well, and also we are making all our micro data sets made available through our website to all the users. For the most recent census and surveys, for household income and expenditure survey data is currently available through our website to all users. And in the past also, we have been disseminating all the administrative data records through the statistical yearbook, and it can be downloaded into different formats as well. But now through the previously mentioned portal, we are trying to come up with these data, administrative data sources. And we believe that when these data sets, the census and survey data sets are made publicly available, they can significantly enhance the researchers conducted, and the transparency as well. It can be enhanced, and for the decision-making purposes, and people could do more research rather than depending on what NBS is providing. They can do more on these data sets. You will. Next slide, please. Looking into the collaborations NBS have with other entities on this open data concepts initiatives, actually, for overall, the Maldives statistical system is coordinated all its statistical activities through the national coordination mechanisms established, which is at the technical level, the National Statistics Coordinating Committee, and at the policy level, we have a ministerial committee on official statistics who guides us. And on the previously mentioned 3 initiatives we have started off, sure, for the enhanced visualization tool, the activity was started off together with all the sectoral agencies with the support of UNESCAP is helping us on this, and all agencies are being trained together with MBA staff on data formatting and standardizations as well. And on provision of advanced mapping tool, actually the mandate is with the Maldives Land Survey Authority, so we are working together with them on this. We started the work together with them, and the key staff are being trained with the assistance of expert consultants on this, I mean, integrating the maps into the system as well. And on the data sets to be made available, all the data requests are being guided with the links to the website for microdata as well. And many of the organizations are being trained through the basic statistics course we conduct annually on how to use the microdata sets as well through their mini projects. We direct them to our website to use the microdata sets available on the website. Next slide, please. And looking at the key challenges we face on these initiatives to make our data more open, actually, firstly, it's data interoperability, saying that government agencies often collect data in different formats, making it challenging for us to share, compare data and other agencies with other agencies and international organizations as well. And secondly, the data timeliness is an issue because unable to get up-to-date data on a timely manner from other agencies, as we are a decentralized statistical system, we rely mostly on the administrative data sources from other agencies. And the timeliness is very challenging for us. And on the metadata standardization as well, we lack a consistent metadata standard as such, but we are currently with the enhanced visualization tool as it uses the STMX platform. We are currently working on coming up with the standardized metadata standards as well. And on data visualization and dissemination as well, we would rather say our existing methods for data dissemination and visualizing data is a bit inefficient, we could say, on the data security, data structuring, and limitations and compatibility across the different systems. We would say we do have the challenge. And yes, the technical resources is the limitations we do have. And of course, NBS is a very small office with around 40 staff, and we lack the technical infrastructure and the skilled staff, the resources needed to manage, store, and share large data sets across the Maldives statistical system, but we are currently working with UNST on that component as well. And of course, finally, the funding constraints, the budget constraints hinders the ability to make data more open and support long-term data infrastructure projects and provision of trainings. Actually, we usually have to rely on donor assistance and on these projects and the support that for their support. And as we do not have enough domestic resource budgets available for statistical activities, and this affects actually the sustainability of these initiatives. Next slide, please. Well, as a forward for the NBS to further develop our efforts and to encourage other NSOs also to implement open data within their NSOs, we would like to say open data can significantly increase the value of data at the end, held at the NSOs by actually we could encourage innovations like by making data freely available. We can empower students, researchers, even the businesses and the developers to come up with innovative solutions. Likewise, for example, we've had our first ever Maldives Datathon recently, and the teams actually participated, used our data and other data sources as well to come up with innovative approaches. And we will surely continue this datathon to come up with new means to fill data gaps as well. And also increasing data usage through awareness and data literacy is very important. We believe that building a data culture can lead to greater use and demand for official statistics in the country as well. And developing the infrastructure, technical infrastructure for open data platforms. Likewise, we are using the Suit portal. It's an open source one, and we could, customize to our needs and carry on this to make it more available and user friendly for the users. And also something which we would like to go on with is implement a data tracking data usage. Actually, at the moment through the website hits only we know, and this is something which we could improve on it, and we could establish feedback mechanisms as well to continually improve the data sharing process from our side as well. And finally, I would say fostering collaborations with other stakeholders, as I mentioned in our collaborations in all these activities also made us, it's very, beneficial for us as well, for the NSO as well as for the partnering agencies as well. And we believe that we can further collaborate with other state agencies, international organizations, the private sector, the civil society organizations, and academia as well to enhance the scope and value of open data. This could, I believe, lead to minimizing the costs by sharing the resources as well among different stakeholders. And yeah, in conclusion, I would say making data more available, more open, provides a number of benefits across various domains, and open data creates a more informed and empowered society. Yeah, thank you.
Shazna, thank you. That was a remarkably comprehensive view of the implementation of open data in a national statistics office. And I think you touched on many themes that will come up over and over as we go forward. Let me now go back to Jameson and ask him to be our moderator for the Q&A session. I see that there are at least one question in the chat as well as in the Q&A box. And please keep your questions coming. We have about 10 minutes, maybe a little bit less, for this session.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Yeah, I think we probably have more like 7 or 8 minutes, but we'll do what we can. So yeah, let me. We have a few questions for you, Shazna, and let me direct the first one to you. There's a question about just the management of kind of these big open data sets, and so I don't know. Maybe you can speak to a little bit more of like how you are managing, publishing such much more public dissemination data than maybe you previously had over the last 5 years. So as you're scaling up your open data efforts, I'm sure there's been some restructuring or some differences you've had to make in how you store that data, manage the data, and so forth. So I don't know, maybe there's some lessons that you've learned as you've been publishing more data that has been helpful to manage the just extensive information that you're now publishing that is much more than before.
Well, yeah, in the past as well, we do compile the annual statistical yearbook, but it's not such a very user-friendly one, where it is kind of difficult for users. For each year, they have to browse through one set of annual yearbook. For example, 2024 yearbook data will include all the 2023 data sets. If you are to get a time series data, you have to go one by one to search for whether it is available on the past data statistical yearbooks. So now through the new enhanced one, we are the StatSuite portal. Actually, we could have as a data set available for the together with the past data. So it is much more user-friendly for the users, actually. So it is initially when we kicked off the work, actually, it was quite a lot of work we had to do on data formatting and everything. But from there on, we believe it's more or less a work which we have to do on, just we have to send the templates and we will get back the data and we just have to upload these data. So now the huge work, the formatting and the initial process have gone through. So we are we got assistance from an international consultant as well. So it was kind of we managing together with our team to come up with, and we had the participation from all the members of this National Statistical Coordinating Committee as well. So we had group of people involved in it. So it was kind of, even though we are making more data available on this open platform, it was a huge task initially, but now it's very much lower for us. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's great to hear that the StatSuite platform has actually assisted a little bit in this management of data as well. I know that's an open source tool that a lot of NSOs are interested in and utilizing as well. Let me give you one more question, and this is about, you had a slide on the list of challenges you face as implementing many of these open data initiatives. And one challenge that you didn't mention, which was surprising because I think it's a challenge for a lot of countries, is collaboration across the different agencies. And that was one thing that seemed very impressive to me, is all these collaborative efforts across different agencies that are happening in the Maldives. Maybe you can just share a little bit of that experience and if there's any challenges that, because it seems like that wasn't an issue in the Maldives at all, and yet it somehow is a big issue in many, many other countries.
It is a kind of challenging for us on the collaboration. Is such as I mentioned, we have a technical level coordinating committee as well as the ministerial level. So at the technical level coordinating committee, we do have included all the sectoral agencies which we directly, obtain data from. So it is kind of always there is a focal point at each ministry which we could, just call upon and ask for help. But the thing is, the turnover is very high, and most of the focal points do lack the statistical know-how as such. So for that, we are currently working on providing trainings to the stakeholder agencies as well on the statistical component, as well as data analysis and different statistical tools as well. So we do really have, the challenge, or is to the focal points are being changed frequently, and these are the challenges on the collaboration. Other than that, we do have a very strong bond with many of the organizations. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so I know there's a number of questions here about how you publish microdata. I want to hold those questions to the second Q&A because we're going to be talking more about licensing. I think a lot of those ideas are going to be relevant to that discussion. But before we end the Q&A, I am going to launch a poll just to get some thoughts from you all about some of the open data activities that are happening in your country. So the first question is just a yes or no. If you happen to adopt an open by default approach already in your organizations in your country. And the second question is just asking a little bit about some of the obstacles that you might have already encountered while trying to make some of your data more open. And so hopefully we'll address some of these things as we go through the rest of the workshop. I'll also say that Open Data Watch and the UN Open Data Working Group has done a lot of reporting and provided a lot of information about the dissemination of open microdata. So we do have other resources on that we can share because that is not a big topic of either this workshop or the next workshop, but we will touch on those issues a little bit. So I just do want to be mindful of that as well. Okay, if you could just take another 30 seconds to complete the poll, then we can go ahead and share the results and see what folks are doing. So you should see a screen that pops up that says, session 1 Q&A and gives you a couple questions. So make sure that you're taking a look at that to answer those questions. You might actually have to click on the poll button as well. Okay, just a few more seconds and we'll go ahead and share the results. And there is one other question that was asked that was a little bit more general that I can answer while folks are completing the poll. And that is, what are the differences between, the term open data dissemination and a data sharing agreement. So when we're talking about open data dissemination, we're just talking about making data publicly available to everyone, to anyone, whether they requested it and so forth. And so this is just about dissemination to the public, right? And this could be many forms of dissemination. It could be publishing through data portals, websites, press releases, other dissemination activities. Versus data sharing agreements are generally between institutions, so other organizations in the government, maybe international agencies, agreements to share data with one another, but this is not public sharing, right? So that's the main difference between these two. But if there's follow-up questions on that, happy to answer that, particularly in the next Q&A. So let me go ahead and end the poll so people can see what other participants in this workshop have done in their countries. So actually, we have about a 50-50 split of countries that have already adopted an open by default approach, right? And so hopefully you all are engaging in all the 8 activities that we discussed. But that's great to hear. And hopefully, I don't think we have time in the first Q&A to discuss some experiences from you, but we can, sorry, you can see the results now on your screen, but hopefully we can get some more experiences from folks in that second Q&A or later in the session. When we look at the second question to see what obstacles many of you have encountered when opening data, it looks like the most common obstacles are the topics that we'll be discussing today. So lack of knowledge about open licenses, converting old data sets that are in non-open formats to open formats, and standardization of metadata and so forth are the most common issues. So that's great. That's what we'll be discussing today. And so hopefully we can help with that and provide more resources to help you make progress in those areas. Okay, so I'll stop there and back to you, Eric.
Thank you, Jameson. Thank you again, Shazna, for really a great view of the issues. And now we're going to, as Jameson just said, focus more specifically on three topics having to do with making data available. We'll be talking about open data licensing, about converting data to machine-readable and non-proprietary formats, and then finally, a very big and important topic, the role of metadata in making data open. So first, on open licensing, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Tawhida Wahadzada. And Tawhida, please introduce yourself and go ahead.
Thank you so much, Eric, for the introduction. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tawhida Wahadzada, and I am the Senior Data and Policy Specialist at Open Data Watch, and I will be presenting on open licensing. Before starting the presentation, I want to emphasize that open data licensing is a major area of open data that is oftentimes overlooked. From our work at Open Data Watch, we found that it is not unusual to find data portals labeled as open, but don't have open data licenses. And with the data value chain, open data licenses are crucial for the publication and uptake of data. Now, so what are data licenses? Next slide, please. A data license is a legal agreement between a data provider and a data user that gives the users permission to use data. The license defines how the data can be used, and it protects the rights of both parties. Data licenses must be published on every website where users may access data. And whether a data license is considered open, it essentially depends on what kinds of use are allowed. Adopting a data license is an opportunity for NSOs to encourage public use of data. This therefore multiplies the benefits of open data because of increased use. A data license also alleviates user concerns about the legal ramifications of unapproved use. And it also standardizes how data is cited, which can make it easier to track use and to show impact. In the next slide, we will see what makes a data license open. A license is considered open if it allows the reuse of data for any purpose, excluding illegal use. It explicitly allows non-commercial and commercial use of data. It makes no additional requirements to users other than requiring users to give appropriate credit to the original source, and it does not charge anything for the data. So we do have a general idea of what open licenses entail. What are the steps to adopt a data license? Next slide, please. So the four major steps to adopting a data license are to review existing laws to ensure that there are no legal barriers to publishing and using the data. So this means looking at existing copyright laws or other relevant laws, decrees, or mandates. The second step is to consult with national, statistics producers to build consensus around a common license. And if possible, this includes other producers of statistics, such as producers within the Ministry of Education, Health, Finance, and so forth. The third step is to adopt an open data license that fits your needs or amend a current license to be an open data license. And finally, to publish the license on all relevant websites in a clearly visible location. So this step is extremely important as the data license informs how users can use, share, reuse the data. So we have a general understanding of the components of open data licenses and the steps to adopt one. In the next couple of slides, we will show country examples of open data licenses. Here, the National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda shows an example of adopting an international license. We see that the data and the analysis from the NSO is released under a Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 license, also known as CC-BY 4.0. So the CC-BY 4.0 allows users to share, copy, and redistribute any material in any medium or format for any purposes, even commercially. And it allows users to adapt the material for any purpose, even commercially. However, the licensor cannot revoke these freedoms as long as they give the license terms. And within the CC-BY 4.0 license, users must give appropriate credit, provide a link to the license, and indicate if any changes were made. So while the National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda shows an example of adopting an international license like CC-BY 4.0, we also see countries adopting their own data license in the next slide. Here, the Central Statistical Office of St. Lucia developed and adopted its own license, allowing users a worldwide royal-free, non-exclusive license to freely use the information and for commercial and non-commercial purposes. Users must also provide acknowledgement of the source, as we see in the slide here. And while I do want to note that the Central Statistical Office of St. Lucia developed its own license, this license in fact became a model open license for many Caribbean countries. Thank you for allowing me to provide a brief overview of data licenses. I will now pass it over to Eric.
Oh, thank you so much, Tahira. It's a complicated topic, and we will certainly be happy to field other questions about open data licenses now or after the workshop. But I'd like to move to a presentation by Amelia Pittman on open formats. Amelia, please go ahead.
Thank you, Eric. My name is Amelia Pittman. I am the Data Visualization and Design Manager at Open Data Watch, and I am delighted to speak today on the importance and considerations of open formats. So when data are published and made available to users, the format that they're in makes a big difference as to how accessible and usable they will actually be. Let's sit with a user for a moment. The user has searched through the lists of information that have been made available through their country's National Statistical Office website. They've already checked to make sure that they are free to use all the information that they might find based on the terms of use. But then they track down the data set at last, and all they find is a picture of a table or a file that can only be read by a specialized program that they don't have the resources for. And so the data that the NSO took so much effort to identify, to collect, process, analyze, to then publish and place in the reach of this user, it ends there, it sits unused. But making the data available in an open format changes this story. An open format means that the data are machine readable and non-proprietary. And let's dive a bit deeper into what this all means in practice. What makes some format machine readable? When a user downloads the data, a machine readable format allows them to work with the data directly in a spreadsheet or run it through statistical software. If we look at how a file name ends, that tells us a lot about whether a document is machine readable. For example, if a file ends in SLX or CSV, those are a couple of common formats that can be opened as spreadsheets that allow a user to process and analyze the data and answer their questions. Stata or SAS files can be opened using specialized statistical processing software, and a JSON file makes it possible to store and exchange data between applications and servers. Now, a file that ends in .doc or .pdf is probably going to be a document full of text and maybe some tables and graphs that can be opened in a word processor or PDF viewer. But it isn't something that you can open in a spreadsheet so that you can run a regression or combine with new data. And so even though a computer can open a file, it doesn't count as machine readable. It needs to actually be data that you can process and answer new questions with. Now, making sure data are available in machine readable formats is only part of what it takes for them to be open and accessible to all. Data must also be available in a non-proprietary format. A format can be considered non-proprietary when users can open and use it fully without needing costly and exclusive proprietary software. If a file format is in CSV or SLX, any spreadsheet reader can open that. A user doesn't have to purchase Microsoft Excel. They can just pull it up in Google Spreadsheet. Although when preparing those data files, certainly note the X at the end of the XLSX file. When a spreadsheet is missing that X in just XLS, now that can only be used in Microsoft Excel. And this is a pattern that you'll see across other formats related to Microsoft. You might notice Word documents ending in either doc or docx, and then PowerPoints ending in either PPT or PPTX. This is because Microsoft has included a whole open version of their products where they used to only do XLS files that could only be opened by Microsoft Excel. Now they have enabled XLSX files that have opened up access. But it's not just about whether you can open a file using a certain program. A non-proprietary format should be fully interoperable, which means that it can be reliably processed and readable across programs. This is what ensures broad access. And in addition to making sure that the file format is non-proprietary, it is also important to watch for how the data are compressed. If they are compressed in a RAR format, the users will have to download costly software to extract the data files, which means that the data would be considered proprietary regardless of all the effort that went into their original format. So that's what it means for a file to be non-proprietary. And it's important to note that it is certainly possible for a format to be non-proprietary, but not machine readable. A PDF is a format that anyone can download and view for free, but it isn't something that could be processed or analyzed using statistical software. Before wrapping up this overview of open formats, I want to mention a couple of additional considerations. Official statistics are going to be used by a wide range of users, each with different purposes and levels of technical skill. Some will want to just open a simple table using Excel, while others will want to run in-depth statistical analysis using some coding language like R. So to meet the needs of diverse users, it's important to provide several format options for users to download. And we also want to flag that just because PDFs are not machine readable, that doesn't mean they aren't very important. A PDF provides useful context and analysis that will make it easier for some people to use. It's important to provide a variety of format options as well as PDFs to accompany the spreadsheets. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Amelia. Excellent and very important lessons there about file formats. Finally, I'm going to ask Tahita to come back to talk about metadata And let me just say that metadata is sometimes is the sort of forgotten cousin of data, but it's terribly important. It is really the core of making data open and transparent. So Tahita, please tell us more about open metadata.
Absolutely, Eric, and thank you. Next slide, please. So why is metadata important? Missing metadata impacts on the user's ability to interpret and use what is being presented, and it impacts on the value and trust placed in official statistics. Metadata is a core function of NSOs and an important element in making data open. This allows producers to manage data and users to further understand the data. In the next slide, we will discuss the 3 types of metadata. Structural metadata are information about how the data are organized and stored. They specify the identifier of an indicator and its dimensions along with other attributes that constitute the data. Reference metadata includes the unique identifier of the data and a basic description of the data, such as how and where they were collected and any adjustments or revisions that have been made. They may also provide information about the uses or applications of the data. Both structural and reference metadata are needed to facilitate data sharing within the national statistical system. And finally, administrative data provide information about how data management and the legal responsibilities for managing and using data. They are sometimes treated as part of the reference metadata, but have a distinct function for the statistical agency. And in the next slide, we will discuss other considerations for metadata. So what are some elements we should keep into considerations for metadata? The first step is to create a metadata template. A metadata template is a guide for recording the structural and reference metadata in a standard format for all the indicators in a database. A metadata template is especially useful to ensure the format and consistency across all indicators. The second step is selecting the reference metadata. As a reminder, reference metadata pertains to the general descriptions of the data, how they were collected, and other details covering the overall data set. Models such as SDMX Global Metadata Scheme provides a set of definitions and code names for reference data that can be used as a checklist. This can be a helpful reference to harmonize with international standards, but it is also good to remember that not every single element needs to be included. Selecting the reference material will also depend on what is available and what your users need. The third step is maintaining metadata. This includes maintaining metadata as part of the regular cycle of database maintenance, whether that is updating the date of the last update and the description of the metadata. And the fourth step is publishing the metadata. Ideally, metadata should be available in a machine-readable format through an online data portal. Systems using SDMX can publish their metadata to an SDMX registry, but when this is not possible, metadata can be published in a form of spreadsheets or PDF documents. The availability of metadata should be announced on the same website or data portals used to disseminate the data. And all in all, this is a brief overview of the importance and the types of metadata. Back to you, Eric.
Thank you, Tahita. I know that, that there will be many questions about metadata, and as you go forward, again, I encourage you to stay in touch with us also if you want to follow up on any of the questions that Tahita raised in her talk. Let me also add that there's some really good examples of complete metadata in the SDG database. And if you've ever used the metadata from the UN's SDG global database, you'll find essentially a great template on which you could begin building your metadata library. But I want to move on now to introduce our second NSO speaker, Sarah Ndunda from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. She'll be talking broadly about their experience with open data and how it has also helped them to reach other data users. Sarah, welcome, and please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Eric, for the opportunity. My name is Sarah Ndunda, manager. I'm in charge of data dissemination in Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. And I'm very excited to share our experience with reaching out to data users using open data and basically in our perspective as NSO. So next slide. So basically, the reason why we embrace sharing information with data users is because, first of all, we do that as a mandate. Kenya National Bureau of Statistics is NSO. We are mandated to disseminate information to data users. Our principle is one that when you produce statistics and they are not used, basically that is equivalent to not producing at all. So we have to make sure that whatever we produce is also shared with the users and they are able to use the information for decision making and research and any other use they desire outside there. So our commitment in doing that is we leverage technology and strategic partnerships to make sure that data is accessible. And in this, we mean that we have open data portal, which has macro data. And we also have Canada, which we use to disseminate micro data, which has been anonymized, so that we also encourage researchers to use our data for further research and innovation. We also have user-friendly platforms, which we use to disseminate our data so that even people who have little or less statistical knowledge, they are able to also use our statistics. We also try as much as possible to engage our stakeholders to ensure that we meet their needs. By engaging with the stakeholders, we make sure that we understand their needs and the data gaps so that we may produce fit-to-use statistics. Otherwise, at the end of the day, we might end up producing statistics and they may not be used outside there. So, as I had said, that this brought us because of several reasons, and one of them is that with the production of statistics, it comes with transparency and accountability, because statistics are used by government organizations for policy making and also to track national progress. And what that means is that if we are able to produce these statistics frequently, and we are able to show the progress in terms of time series, then even our citizens can be able to hold our government institutions accountable for the resources which are allocated there. We also try to support evidence-based decision making for policymakers, because accurate and timely data is used for production of policies and also for decision making in all institutions. That includes private sector, academia, research, and also government. And also, as a matter of fact, you realize that most of the innovations are based on data. And when we do not have accurate data, then we might find ourselves not being able to promote innovations, and especially in research institutions where innovation is core mandate. So we encourage them to use our data so that they may get at least information which has been approved to be accurate, and also it has been declared to be official statistics. Also that you realize that when you produce the statistics and you provide them openly and freely, you give people privilege to access that information, even for the people who would not have been accessing the information. So you give non-privileged groups an opportunity to use the data. For example, when you share the information and civil society, they're able to use the data and criticize the government. You realize that when the government funded projects, like what we do, we collect data and surveys and all that. Most of the information is intended for government, but also when you give it for free, other users are able to access, like I've said, the civil society, and they're able to hold the government and criticize the government. And you can see things which are not working well, they are also working well because of that. It also strengthens international and regional compatibility because when you use the standards like SDMX, my colleague from Maldives has talked about use of SDMX. We are also using SDMX in dissemination of our open SDGs, and we also use SDMX in creating of our open data portal from AFDB. So when you do data dissemination using SDMX, which is a standard, you make sure that you ensure that the data can be accessed across different organizations, regionally and internationally, which is good for comparability. Next slide. So Kenya National Bureau of Statistics has open data strategy, and we have pillars in data in our open data strategy. And one thing we usually say when it comes to open data strategy is that open data is not just a tool, it's a strategy to engage our users, because through data, open data, we are able to know how many people are consuming our products through downloads and also through analytics. And that's a way of also engaging our users and knowing which statistics are being used and which are not being used. So the first one is accessibility through digital platforms. So we have digital platforms such as dashboards, which we use to disseminate our statistics. We also have Open SDG platform or Open Data platform. Open SDG platform currently is being reviewed by management before we upload it in we use it in our website. So soon it will be out. And we also have Open Data platform, which we have developed in collaboration with FDB and other stakeholders. And we have Canada, which we use to share our microdata. So we encourage use of digital platform even within NSS, so that we may have data accessible without limitation. We also embrace standard formats, that is SDMX, for data and metadata exchange. And this cuts across our counties, that is our regional administrative regions, where we are disseminating their statistical abstract using SDMX, so that we may be able at least to retrieve the data from their websites without having to go and ask the data from them directly in maybe Excel or CSV files. We have capacity building opportunities and user engagement forums, whereby we engage our users in training sessions so that they may know how to access data from our platforms. And also, we also engage the users to get to know whether their needs are also met. Through that way, we are able to continue improving our product. We also have annual inter-university hackathons, whereby we encourage university students to use our data to come up with those solutions and also for innovation. We have partnerships and collaboration for innovation as a pillar also. We work with international organizations like UNECA, UNSD, AFDB, ONS, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, among others, to advance our best practices. In this way of strengthening engagement with also other government agencies because we do not work as islands. Kenya National Bureau of Statistics is also mandated with coordination of NSS. So we have to work with the government agencies within NSS. We also work with civil society organizations within data ecosystem to ensure that they're also included in production of statistics and their needs are also met. We also engage them when it comes to production of citizen-generated data, which is also another source of data, which is a new and also non-traditional method of data solution, especially when it comes to bridging gaps where we do not have data. We also ensure data integrity. That is a pillar we embrace because data integrity and security is very important. And that means that we protect the data we get from the data providers to ensure that the personal information is not leaked outside there. And that is also in line with Data Protection Act 2019 and Statistics Act 2006. And we anonymize data and specifically micro data before we disseminate in Canada platform so that we protect the users and their personal information. Next slide.
Sarah, I want to leave time for our questions and answers. So if you could summarize quickly, and then of course we're going to supply the all the presentations to our participants, and they'll be able to read them as well. But go ahead and tell us briefly about the challenges and solutions.
We also have challenges which we have experienced as NESO, and we have data privacy concerns, especially when it comes to the data providers. They are concerned about their data privacy. That is a challenge, and we tackle that by anonymizing the data, using statistical disclosure controls. We also have user awareness and engagement as a challenge. And the challenge is limited awareness among our potential users of our product. And what we do is user engagement forums to promote use of open data platforms. And also, as my colleague from Maldives said, resource constraints. Most of organizations, especially in the source, do not have sufficient budget to meet their needs. So how we deal with it is by having strategic partnerships with international organizations and regional organizations to bridge the gap in terms of technology and human resource. Next. So user feedback. Of course, we get user feedback through engagement forums. We also have surveys and complaint box, among others. And we get positive feedback and also constructive criticisms and regions of areas of improvement. When we how we handle it and how we respond to that as Kenya National Bureau of Statistics is to enhance data disaggregation, especially when the complaint criticism is about lack of granular data, and exploiting real-time data solution. That's when we get complaints about the real-time data and the frequency of the data production. And we also have technical challenges in data access. It's a challenge. It's one of the feedback we get from our users, and how we respond to that is by having capacity building programs to ensure that the users are able to access the data without technical issues. We're also exploring alternative data uses, sources such as citizen-generated data to bridge gaps, because you realize that we cannot produce all the statistics, but we have organizations which are producing data there. So we have a criteria for validation of citizen-generated data so that it can be used for official statistics. The next slide and the last one. So the lessons we have learned over time is that overcoming open data challenges is a multi-stakeholder approach. It's an organization you cannot be able to do it by ourselves. So we need to also engage other stakeholders so that we may be able at least to meet the needs of open data. We have also learned that capacity building is very important, and we have to continuously capacity build data users and producers, so that at the end of the day, they have data literacy to produce and also to use the statistics we produce. Sustainability of open data initiatives depends on strategic partnerships and long-term planning. That is a lesson we have learned over the time, and which is important. And way forward, what we are looking forward to make sure that we continue with providing the data is strengthening our current partnerships and collaborations, and especially when it comes to open data initiatives. We are also developing StatChat, which is a chatbot to ensure that the information which is available in our website can also be reached by users in a very fast and also user-friendly way, because chatbots are the trend. We also we promote alternative data sources to bridge data gap, and that includes the citizen-generated data, administrative records, and big data. We also have looking forward to also making statistical data more engaging through data visualization and also storytelling, to make sure that even people with less statistical knowledge, they're able to use our statistics. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And thanks to all the participants who've joined us today. I'm looking at the clock and very aware that all of us have busy days and work, or in some cases, people have completed a very long day and are ready to leave their offices. So we're going to cut short the question and answer period here. I do apologize for that, but when we distribute the slides as well as the recording from today's session, we'll also provide you with contact information so that you can contact individually or as a group the presenters with further questions, or perhaps you just want to share your own ideas with them. It's been very rich presentations. I particularly thank Sarah and Shazna for their part of the show. They really have provided a rich description of their experience with open data. Let me ask Rebecca Nielsen to come back on and wrap up our workshop for today. And Rebecca, please go ahead.
Thank you, Eric, and thanks to all speakers and to everyone who engaged in the chat, and for a very interesting and useful webinar. I think the engagement in the chat and the questions that were asked showed the interest, and it also showed how useful it is what we're currently doing. I believe the results of the poll showcasing that we have a variety of experience in this group, and I think it also reflects the realities in many countries, that there is a strong interest around this, but maybe not everyone has access to or has known too much about this work before. So for that reason, specifically, I appreciate the presentations from Open Data Watch colleagues, as well as from the statistics offices of Maldives and Kenya. We will have a second session at the same time next week. So we hope that many of you will join us for that one. I can't promise that we will be able to publish this one before the next one, but we will try to at least share some presentations that you can share with colleagues. And if there are additional colleagues that want to join the second session, please share with them as well. We'd be happy to have them. And with that, thanks again to everyone, and I'll hand back to you, Eric.
Thank you, Rebecca. And next week's session is going to focus on the use of data portals for dissemination of open data. So I think you'll find that's interesting and a new topic to be considered. Thanks once again to my colleagues from Open Data Watch and to our colleagues from Maldives and Kenya, and to all of you who joined us. With that, we'll wrap up today's session and look forward to seeing you next week.